Around a decade ago, a property developer in China started construction on what was supposed to be a mega metropolis in the southern waters of Malaysia. Today, that project has been dubbed a mega ghost city instead. Only 15% of its skyscrapers and land spaces have been built, and there are hardly any humans in sight. What on earth went wrong here? And will this $100 billion project ever be completed? I'm your host Regis, and today I'm going to tell you about the bizarre story of Forest City, China's $100 billion ghost city in Malaysia. Let's start by traveling back to 2013, the year that China unveiled its Belt and Road Initiative. This huge infrastructure project, which is still currently ongoing, aims to connect China with the entire world and create what some are calling the New Silk Road. A year later, in 2014, China's largest property developer, Country Garden, started constructing their $100 billion megaproject called Forest City in Malaysia as part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Why Malaysia? Well, Country Garden has stated that they personally believe Malaysia could become the gateway of the Southeast Asian region, much like Dubai is for the Middle East today. Setting their sights on the southern region of the Malaysian state of Johor, Country Garden's idea was to construct some sort of futuristic metropolis on top of 4 artificial islands. Think luxury skyscrapers, waterways, classy restaurants, and golf courses. Add some vertical green spaces, fancy hotels, and both commercial and residential facilities, and the picture starts to look quite amazing. Kids would have access to elite international boarding schools and colleges. The island would be outfitted with top-notch security, including surveillance drones and security patrols that would constantly monitor the grounds to keep citizens safe. That sounds a little bit extreme to me, but hey, I guess some folks are into that kind of Big Brother surveillance. The 4 man-made islands were originally supposed to stretch across an area of 30 square kilometers. That's about twice the size of the Los Angeles International Airport. During the time the project was conceived, China was experiencing a major property boom, and investments were flowing in to build middle-class properties both locally and abroad. Country Garden hoped to turn their Malaysian Forest City into an eco-friendly, tech-savvy space fit to house around 1 million people from all over the world. Okay, so with all of that in mind, let's now look at the current status of Forest City. By 2023, only around 15% of the project had been built, and only 1% of the development had actually been occupied. And it doesn't seem like those numbers have changed at all. Of the 4 islands, only one has even begun construction, and it's not even completed yet. Of the approximately 700,000 apartments originally planned, only around 26,000 are done. The project is so far behind schedule that Country Garden has defaulted on their debt of nearly $200 billion. And Forest City has become nothing more than a ghost city. Today, the island's beach stands deserted, and most of the shops and restaurants are closed. The mall is largely abandoned, and vacant construction sites only contribute to the desolate and eerie feeling of this supposed island of the future. The most bustling place in Forest City seems to be the duty-free shop that was added in 2016 to boost its popularity and attract tourists. Now, most people come to the island solely to buy tax-free cigarettes and alcohol, but almost none of them actually live in Forest City themselves. The island becomes super dark at night, apart from the occasional window light, as there are hardly any residents occupying the apartment units. And yet, Country Garden claims to have sold 80% of their completed apartments to date. When asked, the company refrained from commenting on exactly how many people actually live in these sold units. Oh, and as if that wasn't enough, you can't even swim at the island's deserted beach because there are warnings of, get this, crocodiles. So yeah, not really an attractive investment by the looks of it. We're no experts here, but maybe they should have completed the project or at least finished the first island before having a bunch of people move into this ghost city. This, however, seems to have been a part of China's signature build it and they will come development strategy that banks on people flocking in as long as there are buildings to occupy. But quite a few of these developments have ended up as ghost towns too, just like Forest City. All of this begs the question, where did it go so terribly, terribly wrong? And before we answer that question, we quickly want to thank our long-term partner CyberGhost VPN for sponsoring this video. With over 38 million users worldwide and over 20,000 excellent reviews on Trustpilot, it's one of the best VPNs out there. So let us quickly tell you why CyberGhost is such a great choice. A VPN is essential for protecting your digital privacy. Plenty of eyes are watching you every time you go online, and even incognito mode doesn't prevent that. Your internet service provider, your school or work's IT department, even your home Wi-Fi router, they can all track what you do online. And that's where CyberGhost VPN comes in. Simply select one of their over 100 locations before you browse to encrypt and reroute all of your traffic through their secure servers. This way, no one will even know about your online activity. CyberGhost also unlocks geo-restricted games and content from over 40 streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney+. And you can even score better deals online by simply changing your virtual location. It works on all major devices and operating systems: Windows, Mac OS, Android, iOS, and you can even protect up to 7 devices at the same time, perfect for sharing with friends and family. With our link, cyberghostvpn.com/megabuilds, you get their best deal ever. Just $2.03 a month, plus 4 months free, which is 84% off. There's even a 45-day money-back guarantee, so you literally have nothing to lose. It's a great product, we can definitely recommend it, and by signing up using our link in the description, you also help us to create more videos just like this one. And now, back to Forest City and what went so terribly wrong. This ambitious megaproject was initially sold as a dream paradise for all mankind. But the selling prices for these properties were simply out of reach for the average Malaysian citizen. In 2017, the apartment prices at Forest City started at $170,000, yet the average price of a house in Johor back then was just under $60,000. This led many to speculate who Forest City was really for, because it sure seemed like it was catering more towards Chinese property investors than the locals. People from China could pump their money into Forest City, secure themselves a second home abroad, and make some extra income by renting it out. At least that was the plan these marketers were selling to Chinese citizens. In 2015, speculative buyers from China were flown in to get their hands on some pre-sale Forest City apartments that hadn't even been built yet. By 2017, Country Garden revealed that of the 20,000 apartments they had planned to construct in the next 3 years, 75% of them had been sold to people from mainland China. Only 10% was snatched up by Malaysians and buyers from neighboring Singapore. 2 main factors would end up hampering this selling drive: politics and a global pandemic. Just as the buyers from China were starting to have their pick of the Forest City properties, the Chinese government decided that too much money was flowing out of China. So in 2017, at the height of Forest City sales, China started to impose capital controls that would prevent citizens from moving more than $50,000 out of the country every year. Given that the minimum price of Forest City apartments was $170,000 back then, sales soon started to tank. A year later, there would be another blow to the sales department, as the Malaysian government decided to impose restrictions on visas for citizens from mainland China. This had a dramatic effect on the sales and caused Country Garden's stock price to plummet in October of 2018. A little over a year after that, disaster struck again. With the advent of COVID-19 and travel restrictions put into place worldwide, it became even more difficult for potential buyers to hop on board and buy themselves some foreign property that they couldn't even visit. Of course, we can't talk about this failing project without mentioning China's housing bubble. After years of borrowing literal boatloads of cash to invest in property development, China had to start rolling out stricter borrowing limits in 2021. This naturally caused construction and development pockets to run dry and projects to stall, including those of Country Garden. The company is currently trying to avoid liquidation to give you an idea of just how bad things are going.
Country Garden, it's one to watch, it's in serious trouble.
Investors who've already bought apartments in Forest City are now seeing their property values drop by up to 40% in pricing. The price range for buying apartments in Forest City today ranges from $75,000 to almost $5 million. Besides economics, politics, and pandemics, There are even more factors that hampered the sale of this not-so-futuristic metropolis. One of them has to do with the location. The fact that Forest City is pretty isolated and a ways away from Johor's capital city proved to be a difficult selling point for investors and tenants alike. Currently, there's only one road connecting Forest City to the mainland, and that road collapsed in 2023 due to a sinkhole. Maintenance workers were left stranded on the island for days while the road was being rebuilt. The project also had to deal with the inevitable amount of construction delays and environmental problems. Back in 2014, Country Garden was just starting to dump giant trucks of sand into the sea to build their first island when operations came to a complete halt. See, it turned out that the company didn't do any of the necessary environmental impact checks that they said they would. This is pretty ironic, since Country Garden keeps touting their green metropolis as an eco-friendly, low-pollution offshore city. Local stakeholders and Malaysia's neighbor, Singapore, started raising concerns over the lack of land reclamation permits. There were also worries over the impact on marine wildlife and the security of fish stocks in the Johor Straits region. It took literal months for officials to complete the environmental assessment and for construction to resume. Still, the local seagrass and mangrove habitats have been all but destroyed, as the project kept dumping sand into the sea to extend the shoreline and create artificial land. And the environmental destruction hasn't stopped there either. One of the 3 planned golf courses of Forest City has been erected on top of a large mangrove in the Ramsar Reserve. Granted, it does look pretty cool, but the loss of mangroves means a huge loss of biodiversity for the entire area. While there have been many environmental concerns regarding the project, there are at least some eco-wins for Forest City. The vertical green walls that cover almost every building not only help lower air pollution, but they also shade the buildings and keep them cooler during hotter months. The buildings are also prefabricated at a construction industrialization base nearby. This building method can greatly reduce both water and energy consumption. In fact, compared to traditional cast-in-place construction methods, prefabricating these buildings can save up to 50% on water and 70% on construction waste. Forest City also boasts an impressive water recycling system. Most of the water used for greening the parks and buildings currently comes from reclaimed water. Okay, so with all of this in mind, what does the future look like for this once promising megaproject? Prior to the COVID-19 outbreak, the finish date for Forest City was set to be somewhere in the mid-2030s. Today, there's no clear indication as to when the project will be completed, if at all. But despite its dire status, there still seems to be some hope of reviving Forest City. Investors are still actively being hunted, but instead of focusing solely on the Chinese market, buyers from the Middle East, Indonesia, and Thailand are now actively being scouted. Malaysia's government today is also much more supportive of the project. After all, they do have a 40% financial stake in the development of Forest City. The country's current Prime Minister, Anwar Ibrahim, wants to offer potential residents multi-entry visas, a flat-rate income tax of 15%, and create a financial zone within the megacity. Moreover, the Sultan of Johor has promised a fast-speed railway that will not only link the Malaysian capital, Kuala Lumpur, with Singapore, but will also stop at Forest City to make it much more attractive for potential residents. Since its original conception, the project has been scaled down to around half of its original size. And while Country Garden has some serious financial issues, they're still adamant that Forest City could be completed. As they told the New York Times in October of 2024, the blueprint for Forest City will not change. Reasonable development and construction will be carried out according to demand. But if Country Garden, who's currently being sued by their creditors in Hong Kong by the way, ends up going bankrupt, the future of Forest City will remain uncertain. So, what do you think? Will this project ever actually be completed? Can Forest City bounce back? Share your thoughts with us in the comments down below. And if you want to try CyberGhost VPN, make sure to use our link in the description. CyberGhost VPN will protect your data while you browse and give you full access to all blocked content on the internet. It's a great VPN, just like their current deal for $2.03 a month and 45 days money back guaranteed, so it's totally risk-free. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.